someone mentioned that there was a word from inside DOJ, not you, but word from inside DOJ that the Axel Justice murderers might get away with it because it happened in prison. Is there any truth to that? I'm hoping it's a massive miscommunication or someone misinterpreting something, or one of the seditious judges acting in bad faith. But I wanted to confirm before I lost my shit. I asked him to go to prison afterwards.
I don't even know where to begin. So there is a discussion ongoing
Demodulate his
that
voice.
has
It's
not come
Christmas.
anywhere close to reaching a conclusion that deals with the reality of how we address acts that take place in prison. Part of that discussion touches on the historical reality that we have, in fact, in the past, typically not prosecuted actions that take place in the prison. That does not mean that the outcome of that discussion has been decided, nor does it mean that if that outcome had been decided or leaned towards, that the outcome came down to not punishing anyone. It's so preliminary as to be absurd.
What would you put the odds at? 10%?
The odds of no one being punished,
Yeah.
0%.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear. Because if not, I was going to
The,
drag you here and murder you myself. And then, what
yeah,
are you going to do?
the discussion leans towards. I don't even, I'd really like to know who the someone is, because
I suspect that it's my guess from hearing this the first plan, or the first time I heard this, my guess was it's some, I don't want to say bad actor, but it's someone in the DOJ or a lawyer who's like, well, we've never really charged people for stuff in prison before. And it's like, yeah, all right, well, they've never really set up a execution camera and murdered the commissioner on camera before, so things are different. In any case,
correct.
I've literally charged people in prison as recent as 2 weeks ago for attacking cops. I charge prisoners all the time. I know DOC can't. That's because they can't, not because they don't want to. As a whole, if I'm of the opinion that if anybody attacks police officers in prison and I'm there for it, they're getting charged because I can and I will.
And then what is the shit about a mutiny or something?
Yeah. Apparently you were there, but I was described to me by
Oh, okay.
special
We're just
prosecutor.
back to there. Okay, okay. I
Yeah,
thought there was something more since then.
I'm a little concerned that, to be blunt, there are judges that are openly saying stuff that would get them sedition if the senator were to hear it, and I think I think as police officers we could arrest them for it, but I'm not really willing to burn the bridge with you just yet because I'm hoping you're aware of it. And there's some kind of plan to handle these guys, but apparently they're what was described as a mutiny last night, and I think that's hyperbole.
I
But
went there, and I'll give you my take, okay? Because I sat through it. Uh, Essentially, without informing myself or Andy Jones, uh, judges Greyson and Schwinghammer organized with Ursula a quote unquote town hall. Now, they advertised it and they conducted it as a quote unquote unofficial town hall. What I mean by that is Grayson was not signed into the app. He made a very clear point uh, to mention that to everyone that would listen. And they advertised it clearly as unofficial capital U. In addition to that, when I showed up, the man called me Alan instead of Crane or Chief Justice Crane or Justice Crane or anything of the sort. So he was making a very clear distinction that this was his personal time and he was spending it expressing his freedom of speech. He went up there first and said he wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to talk and that people had reached out to him expressing concerns about their inability to have their voices be heard, blah, 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 democracy. And then he basically gave what I can only describe as the equivalency of a fire and brimstone speech, except in the name of democracy. So he basically used a lot of really fancy words and raised his voice a lot and shouted a lot. And basically it was a call to action about, society being overrun by the Senate, and the Senate's evil, and the war in Sanguine bad, and Sanguinians mistreated, due process is the core of everything, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you're sitting there and you're just looking at tone, then yeah, it sounds bad. You know, what he did call for was he called for a quote unquote vote of no confidence for the Senate, which is a patently absurd statement, but regardless, that's his, you know, right, freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah.
Was it at the courthouse?
No, this was at the old courthouse. Again, they made a very specific point to do this not at the courthouse, so it wasn't taken as an official action.
Gotcha.
He did it off duty. He called it unofficial. He was very, I mean, Greyson can be a blowhard and he can be, you know, obnoxious sometimes, but he's not a complete moron. He didn't do this trying to exercise his authority. He just did it as like a, I don't know, kind of grandstanding would be the best way to put it.
Virtue signaling, grandstanding. Yeah.
Yeah, like, be a good way to put it. Yeah. So I basically got up because I heard both him and Schwinghammer make reference to the idea or frame the invasion as stemming from the like an Aegis violation. They tried to claim that the reason why we went over there was because Divine wasn't extradited, which was one factor, but definitely not the most important one, and definitely not the entirety of the story. And I was very concerned because Schwinghammer in his speech even made reference to the fact that he didn't know the exact reasons we went over there. He plainly admitted to being ignorant. So I got up and I said, hey, look, there's been a lot of stuff said. I'm not going to sit here and, you know, grandstand and do all that kind of stuff. But I am going to tell you that if you want the information, it is out there. Ursula Leichenberg has published several statements that describe why we went over there. And it is not just limited to what's been set up here, and you should do your own research and make yourself informed so that you can have, you know, a reasonable opinion. There were several people that countered what they said. There were several people that agreed with what they said. At one point, Percy Weaver, who has a decided personal bias against me, got up there and said, well, hell, if we're going to do a vote of no confidence in the Senate, Crane is the reason the Senate got to where they are, which is an absurd statement in of itself. But then proceeded to say Crane is the reason why they got to where they are. So we should do a vote of no confidence in Crane. And then a bunch of people in the crowd were like, what the fuck, and booed and said no. So yeah, that was that.
And I'm guessing
I left eventually because Shelley Smith got up there and tried to co-opt it into like her own pity party about her pleading guilty to terrorism and all that, and not being able to get an expungement. And it just kind of devolved. I mean, people like Holden Maddox got up there and said we should execute Osvaldo Pingafria. Like, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing Greyson has a vision for who would replace the senator, and I'm guessing Percy Weaver, as negatively as that was received, thinks he would have a great candidate in mind to replace you if that happens.
I don't know.
Themselves. Anyway,
probably.
Are you aware that Brian Knight is running for Senate?
I wish him the best of luck.
He said the voting's coming up soon.
Yeah, Senate is not an elected position.
Well, I didn't have the heart to tell him. He seems so dead set on it.
Yeah. Well, as it were, I'll be honest with you. I don't think any of this will matter much in a couple weeks. I think that my position to the senator and my position in discussions that have occurred thus far, and I'm doing you the respect of telling you this because I don't think you're as dumb as some of these people who go around and gossip, but the perspective that I've laid out to the senator, in one that I think at this point he agrees with, is that while I'm going to choose my words carefully here. While I recognize and appreciate the ultimate authority that he holds and the power of his office, I do think that it has put some of us below him in an untenable position when it comes to carrying water for his decisions.
I agree.
And while, yourself included, myself, many others, while there is nothing to be done in terms of hindsight and changing those decisions, I do believe that one thing that Greyson is somewhat in the general vicinity of correctness on is that
I'm ready, Mr. DaCosta. We're ready for you.
the level of authority demonstrated by the Senate has not been wielded in the most responsible ways. So, myself,
but you could have said that back when
100%.
Insert senator action there and there.
Trust me, I did. Yeah. So, but the point is that now that we are here and we have what amounts to a social referendum on the authority of the Senate, we need a way to move forward together. And one of the things that I'm going to try to stress to the senator, and one that I think that he's already on the same page on, is that perhaps he might take a pension and go golfing. And perhaps that might allow for some of the pressure to be removed.
Maybe. I'm hesitant. On one hand, if the senator were removed, then...
Not removed, retire.
Well, if the senator were to be gone, retired, whatever, adjective, whatever, verb, whatever, if the senator weren't there anymore, it would make some of these people in prison shut up, right? You'd think. But it didn't when Brian quit, and it didn't when Axel died, and it still hasn't so far. So I'm not really of the opinion that the senator bowing to their demands, not that he would be intentionally, but nonetheless, if he were to resign, it would be what they want, right? If the senator is removed from the equation in any case, you'd think that they would shut up, right? But time has proven that they won't.
Oh, nobody will ever shut up. Nobody will ever shut up.
And the way I see things is, as the sheriff, having the senator is nothing but a benefit to me.
Correct.
I may not agree with what he does, and he may put targets on our backs some days, but having him around gives us a lot of weight to throw around when it comes to actual terrorist, seditionist, treasonist, whatever.
Yeah.
And he does things that you and I can't. We're both at the top of our independent factions at this point. But regardless, there are things that we can't do that he can do. And if he were to retire, that power wouldn't necessarily settle with either of us or anyone at all. It would just disappear entirely.
It would not disappear entirely. So I will say this. There will always be a federal government, right? Mm-hmm. There will always be someone above this state. And those folks, there's a sort of, how do I put this? There's a level of day-to-day involvement, and that level may vary, right? Mm-hmm. And I think with Davis specifically, there was a higher level of day-to-day involvement, to the point where there are many folks that couldn't even name another senator. And I think that while there may be the authority needed that Davis represents and his department, controls, and yes, that will still exist. The Senate is not being dissolved completely. His day-to-day influence would be considered prolific as compared to the others.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I believe that in terms of representing the idea of democracy may be more important than ultimate democracy, at least when it comes to the rabble rousing of, the many. And in this case, I think Davis retiring might be enough of a pressure release, combined with, the fact that obviously Axel's gone, Brian's gone. Whatever happened to that cross-dresser? What was it, the false flag idiot moron I heard about in prison? Christmas?
I got cross.
Sorry, not cross-dresser. What do they call it? He wore like false flag. He wore the EMS outfit.
Talking about Walt?
Yeah, Christmas. There's a guy in prison that everyone was talking about. I passed it along.
He's not in prison.
No. When I was in prison doing visits with the Sanguine
What'd you get booked for?
They were all complaining. No, I just walked in there. It was like a day after they got sent in. Anyway, I was in there, and they were all complaining about false flag EMS with rocket launchers.
Yeah, he's been terminated.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, it seems like at any point the pound of flesh has been had by these people, and it's not going to change anything, but it'll give them one less thing to point to.
I don't like it personally.
Logistically,
to cut through the bullshit, I don't think the senator retiring does anything for us except give us an out to point to when we're forced to do something we don't necessarily agree with. I think, yeah, there's always going to be something above us, but it's a lot easier to say the senator said it than a nebulous federal government.
Well, there still will be senators. There still will be senators.
But, like, when's the last time anyone saw Barossi? Maybe 2 years ago? I don't know. Listen, what I'm saying is, it's not up to me whether he retires or not. But if it were,
it's up to him. If he's going to, he's gonna decide.
Right. But if it were up to me, I would highly encourage him not to, because having him, even if the ideal situation is he stops coming around every day or every week and just kind of extreme emergencies. The problem that I have is that we've caved or welched to every demand they have so far. Brian quit. I mean, that's the way they see things, right? It's not what happened, but it's the way they see things. The commissioner they hated is dead. Tarossi's quit. Or sorry, not Tarossi. Toretti quit. Brian quit. Walter Christmas is fired. Who else is even left besides the senator, right? And at the end of the day, they get everything they want, and they're still talking about right now, by the way, doing a concert in here, about how when these 30 days are up, they're going to be out there again doing the exact same shit. Like, here's the problem I got, is if we give them everything they want, and now we don't have what we need to put them back in their place again, what have we accomplished? We gave them everything they wanted, whether it was design or not, whether it was our intention or not. We gave them everything they wanted to, and they still had a problem with us. You know, at some point, I'd like to just have the senator around in the back pocket to call on and say, "Hey, these guys won't shut the fuck up." But you know what they did shut up for at least 20 minutes for, is when they got put in jail, maybe for the first 20 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. End of the day,
yeah,
it doesn't really benefit us either way for the senator to retire or to stay, but I would like for them to at least have to know the senator still's there. You know, at the end of the day, these terrorists aren't going to get everything they wanted. That's all I care about. That's where I'm at. It's such a minor point, but the minor point is that at least they didn't totally win. Or at least they don't think they totally won.
Well, I mean, their island got shut down. Their weapons bench got destroyed. I mean,
sure, but they'll say it's all worth it to take down the tyranny of the state if they get exactly what they wanted.
Maybe. I mean, I guess it depends how you reconcile what we went over there for and what we accomplished. Because the stated objectives to me that were brought to the senator by Brian Knight and by Justice was that we were taking down the bomb factory. And
right.
So that was mission accomplished.
Absolutely. But now the goalposts have shifted significantly towards what amounts as an information war, right? You think the members of the BBMC that went over there, or the members of the Saints, or the members of the whoever, Gulag Gang, whatever, these criminal gangs that reside in Los Santos, the gangs that went over there, you think that their stated objective was to fight for freedom and fight for the chains of tyranny of the state to be broken? Or do you think that they were trying to make good with a bomb maker to get more bombs? You and I both know the answer to that. However, we all know what they're pretending to, why they went over there, you know? And if we're going to be fighting information war for the next 20 days at least, and then after that, probably continuing, it does help to have the senator there to at least pretend they didn't win the information war.
Yeah, I got you.
Anyway, I'm glad I could talk to you and clear some stuff up.
Yeah, the whole mutiny thing, gosh. I think, as you so acutely pointed to, sometimes people just really like hearing themselves talk.
Well, there's a whole issue with
the. Concerned about it.
There's a whole issue with, sure, he did everything technically right, Greyson. He wasn't on duty as a judge, didn't do it at the right courthouse, didn't call himself a judge, etc., etc. But is there any doubt that there was an implied authority going on there? That
no, not at all. I mean, in the same way,
judge,
in the same
for 90% of the day, he is a judge, and that these people view him as a judge. And when he's saying these things, he's doing it with the implied authority of being a judge. That's a significant problem to me. But I'm gonna let you clean up your side of the fence before I come at you for it.
Yeah, we'll see how his performance review goes. I mean, Greyson's always been kind of a middle ground issue. Like, he's decent in court. He does tend to let cases drag on too long. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's a bit of a womanizer.
Well, if I can be blunt,
he's
one of the most active judges that doesn't display his biases too openly. He keeps court somewhat entertaining and lighthearted when it needs to be. But, at this point, I don't think Greyson needs to be fired and put in jail for 30 days for sedition. But there's got to be some kind of a reckoning when you start talking about fuck the Senate, when I could never, I mean, listen, Greyson is essentially, in my position, in terms of like chain of commands, he'd be about where, like, I don't know, like a lieutenant or something, right? If a lieutenant in the police department said fuck the Senate, they'd be gone. They'd be out on their ass. If they said it, if a lieutenant said to the LSBN, a news organization, fuck the Senate, or even worse, if they said fuck the chief of police or something, there's no doubt they'd be out on their ass before they could pack their things up. I'm not saying that because, like, you guys need to do that, but I'm saying that because I think you should get a talking to, That's my opinion.
Yeah, I understand the perspective. Yeah, and there will be. I mean, right now, my goal is to get, my goal is to engender as much camaraderie as I can with regards to figuring out the cases that are falling out from the Sanguine issue. Once we have those cases sort of clocked and how we're going to address them, what the parameters are going to be, then I can handle the administrative side.
All right. Well, like I said,
all right.
It's your side of the street.
I'll
let you clean it up. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thank you.